Emily, a 19-year-old girl with very long and thick hair, had always felt like an outsider in her own home. Her stepfather, Robert, never missed an opportunity to show his disdain for her. She could never understand why, but the hostility was clear in every cold glance and harsh word he directed her way. One evening, while Emily was in her room, Robert decided to spy on her. His suspicion was piqued when he noticed her behaving more secretively lately. As he listened at her door, he heard her talking to someone on the phone. It was then that he discovered she had a boyfriend, Jake. Emily's heart sank as she ended the call and turned to see Robert standing in her doorway, a menacing look on his face. "Who were you talking to?" Robert demanded. "Just a friend," Emily said quietly, trying to keep her voice steady. "Don't lie to me," Robert growled. "I know you have a boyfriend. Give me the phone," Robert ordered, extending his hand toward her. "No, you're not my father," Emily replied, holding the phone close to her chest. Robert's anger boiled over as Emily's defiance fueled his rage. He grabbed her arm roughly and dragged her to the chair in her room, his grip painfully tight. Emily struggled, but his strength overpowered her. "Sit down," Robert ordered, shoving her into the chair. "Please don't," Emily pleaded, tears streaming down her face. "You don't have to do this. Give me the phone," Robert demanded, extending his hand. "No, you're not my father," Emily replied, clutching the phone tightly. "Maybe this will teach you to listen to me," Robert said coldly. "I'll shave your head bald so you'll respect me. I'm your father." Robert turned on the clippers, the harsh buzz filling the room. Without hesitation, he began shaving Emily's head, her long, thick hair falling to the floor in clumps. "Stop. Please," Emily cried, her voice breaking. "Why are you doing this? To make you respect me." Robert responded harshly. "I'm your father and you'll do as I say." Emily sobbed, feeling utterly humiliated and powerless. As Robert continued to shave her head, he showed no sign of stopping until every last strand of her hair was gone. Her scalp was left smooth and bare. "Look at you now," Robert sneered, tossing the clippers aside. "Now you'll respect me." Over the next few weeks, Robert repeated this torment 3 more times. Each time he made sure Emily's head was shaved smooth. Her humiliation became a regular spectacle for him. One evening, after the 4th head shaving, Robert decided to take his control a step further. He threw an old maid's gown at her. "Put this on," Robert ordered. "Why?" Emily asked, her voice trembling, staring at the worn fabric in her hands. "From now on, you're going to serve me around the house," Robert said, his eyes cold. "And remember, you don't speak to me unless spoken to." "Understand?" Emily nodded, her spirit broken. "Yes," Emily said softly. "If you ever talk back to me again, you'll regret it," Robert warned, his voice dripping with menace. Emily nodded, her spirit broken. "Yes," Emily said softly. Days turned into weeks, and Emily's life became a series of humiliations and servitude. She performed her chores in silence, the old maid's gown a constant reminder of her stepfather's control. But despite the outward compliance, a spark of hope remained in Emily's heart, her secret relationship with Jake. One evening after another exhausting day, Emily found a moment to call Jake. She waited until Robert was asleep before sneaking into her room and dialing his number. Emily whispered, tears welling in her eyes. "I can't do this anymore." "Emily, 19 years old," Jake said, his voice filled with concern. "What's happened? Tell me everything." Emily took a deep breath and recounted the torment she had endured, from the head shavings to the forced servitude. "This is beyond terrible," Jake said, anger evident in his voice. "We need to take action." "But how?" Emily asked, desperation creeping into her voice. "My sister Laura is a lawyer," Jake explained. "She can help us. We'll build a case against Robert and make sure he faces justice." The next day, Emily met with Jake and his sister Laura at a discreet location. Laura listened intently as Emily recounted her experiences, documenting every detail. "We have enough to take this to court," Laura said confidently. "Robert's actions are not only abusive but criminal. He will face justice for what he's done to you." "Thank you," Emily said, her voice trembling. "I just want to be free." "You will be," Laura assured her. "We'll make sure of it." The court date was set, and Emily found herself standing before a judge, flanked by Jake and Laura. Robert sat across the room, his expression a mixture of anger and defiance. "These are serious allegations," the judge said, looking at Robert. "Do you have anything to say in your defense?" Robert glared at Emily, then at the judge. "She's lying," he spat. "She's always been a troublemaker." "That's not true," Emily exclaimed, her voice strong and clear. "You've tormented me for years, and now it's time for you to face the consequences." Laura presented the evidence: photos of Emily's shaved head, testimonies from neighbors who had witnessed Robert's abusive behavior, and Emily's own heartfelt account of her suffering. The judge reviewed the evidence carefully. After what felt like an eternity, he delivered his verdict. "Robert, you are hereby sentenced to 5 years in prison for the abuse and torment inflicted upon Emily," the judge declared. "Justice will be served." Emily felt a wave of relief wash over her as Robert was led away in handcuffs. She turned to Jake, who hugged her tightly. "You're free now," Jake said softly. "We can start a new life together." Emily and Jake got married in a small, intimate ceremony surrounded by friends and loved ones. Over the next 5 years, Emily healed and grew stronger. She took self-defense classes and became proficient in martial arts, determined never to be a victim again. Their life was peaceful and filled with happiness. Emily found fulfillment in her studies and hobbies, and she and Jake built a loving home together. 5 years had passed since Robert was sent to prison, and the nightmare seemed like a distant memory. However, one evening, Emily received a call that sent chills down her spine. Robert had been released from prison. She tried to stay calm, but her past haunted her. A few nights later, as Emily was returning home from her martial arts class, Robert emerged from the shadows and grabbed her, dragging her into an alley. He forced her into a chair he had set up, surrounded by tools he had brought with him. "You thought you could get away from me?" Robert sneered, brandishing a razor. "I'm going to make you pay." He forced her to the ground and shaved her head smooth once again, leaving her completely bald. Clumps of her shaved hair lay scattered on the floor, on the table, and on the cloak he had thrown over her. As he finished, he yelled at her, his voice filled with rage. "You're still mine to control," Robert shouted, his eyes wild with fury. "You think you're safe now?" "You're not." Emily, though momentarily shaken, remembered her training. She stood up, her eyes fierce and determined. "You don't control me anymore," Emily, 24 years old, said, her voice strong. Robert didn't anticipate her response. He moved to grab her again, but Emily was ready. She delivered a swift punch to his jaw, followed by a series of precise martial arts moves that left him incapacitated on the ground. As Robert lay groaning, Emily took a deep breath, the adrenaline coursing through her veins. She pulled out her phone and called the police, giving them her location and a brief explanation of the situation. Minutes later, the police arrived and arrested Robert once more. As they loaded him into the patrol car, Robert turned to Emily, his face a mask of rage and disbelief. "This isn't over," Robert yelled, struggling against the officers. "It is for you," Emily said firmly, her voice unwavering. "You'll never hurt me again." Emily watched as the car drove away, feeling a sense of closure wash over her. She had faced her greatest fear and emerged victorious. Her life with Jake was now free from the shadow of her past, and she knew she would never be a victim again. Returning home, Emily was greeted by Jake, who had been worried sick after hearing about the incident. "Are you okay?" Jake, 30 years old, asked, pulling her into a tight embrace. "I am now," Emily said softly, leaning into him. "It's finally over." Jake kissed the top of her head, his love and support a constant source of strength for her. "We're in this together," Jake said, looking into her eyes. "Always." Emily smiled, feeling truly free for the first time in years. She knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, she had the strength and the support to face them head on. And with that, she and Jake continued to build their life together, their bond stronger than ever.